Okay, so imagine a story about the most complex machine in the known universe, but it's actually narrated by the machine itself. That is essentially the autobiography of the human brain. In this explainer, we're going to explore this fascinating journey from the very first breath we take all the way to the final blackout. We'll be mapping out its incredible powers, its hidden vulnerabilities, and ultimately, the fate of our most vital biological machine.
Right off the bat, the source material gives us this incredibly striking perspective. The brain basically tells us, people say time is the greatest healer, but in reality, that healer is me. I mean, that instantly shifts how you look at things, right? It really hooks you, because it reveals that our mind isn't just passively sitting there as time passes. It is the active, driving architect of our survival. The creator built this mechanism inside us. Time doesn't heal you. The magnificent machinery inside your skull does. So let's dive into exactly how it pulls that off.
Chapter 1. The Ultimate Information Vault.
Literally from the very second a baby comes into the world, the first thing they see, hear, and feel kicks off a process that never, ever stops. Your brain catalogs absolutely everything from your senses, your eyes, ears, tongue, nose, skin, every single second. And the crazy part? You're completely oblivious to it. Whether you're wide awake, going about your day, or snoring in a super deep sleep, this traffic of data is just constantly flowing. The brain safely archives millions of intricate new pieces of information all at once, just to build your daily reality.
So why does this massive storage matter? Well, think about it. Without this invisible vault, everyday life would be an absolute nightmare. You aren't consciously aware of this treasure trove of data most of the time, but if your brain didn't instantly store and retrieve it, human existence would be pure torture. You'd constantly burn your hands on hot pots because you just wouldn't remember the danger. You'd be tripping and falling all the time. You'd have to relearn how to drive a car or read a book every single day. Even basic survival, like knowing how to eat or recognizing the faces of your own family, would become agonizing.
But, what happens when this vital machine actually breaks down? This right here reveals nature's absolute gift to us, the brain's self-repair protocol. If a part of the brain fails, it literally starts wiring itself back together. Sure, it might take a while for extra, healthy cells to step up and learn how to manage those complex, unfamiliar tasks, but eventually the brain can successfully reestablish those broken neural connections. This is exactly how, over time, speech can return to someone who's had a stroke, or how paralyzed limbs can slowly begin to move again. It's this priceless and valuable gift of neuroplasticity.
Chapter 2. The Power of Forgetting.
Now, this is where things get really fascinating. There's this profound contrast between two absolute necessities for human survival. On the one hand, obviously, we have the power to remember. That keeps us alive, helps us learn, connects us to our families. But on the other hand, equally as vital, the power to forget. According to our source material, forgetting is actually what actively prevents madness, heals unbearable grief, and suppresses deep trauma. Think about the emotional stakes here. If we literally couldn't forget, a mother could never ever survive the loss of a child. The pain would stay as fresh as the exact second it happened, eventually driving her to madness. If we couldn't forget our humiliations, our worries, our deepest sorrows, human beings would just tear each other apart like wild animals over past grief and insults. We'd completely lose our mental balance. But your brain, it actively pushes those unbearable, unpleasant memories out of reach, gently pulling you back from severe depression. That is how the brain acts as the ultimate healer.
Moving on to Chapter 3. Enemies Inside the Fortress.
So the brain essentially lives in a heavily fortified stronghold. It sits safely inside a hard skull, floating around in this shock-absorbing foam-like fluid. But of course, there are intruders that can breach the fortress. The first threat is a tumor, sometimes described in the source as a boil on the brain. Now, while that sounds terrifying, modern surgery makes this highly treatable, and patients often return to normal. But then we have the much more insidious threats, bursting veins and severe head trauma. These are the ultimate physical dangers that completely bypass the skull's outward defenses.
Let's break down a stroke, for example. It usually starts incredibly quietly. A tiny blood clot just forms in one of the brain's narrow veins. Suddenly, forward blood flow gets blocked. But here's the problem. Your heart keeps pumping. That means severe, relentless pressure just builds and builds against those delicate vein walls. Finally, unable to take the force, the vein just bursts. This violently cuts off the blood supply to specific parts of the brain, leading to devastating stuff like sudden paralysis.
And that actually brings us to one of the most critical vulnerabilities of all, brain swelling, which the source refers to as VRAM. This is inflammation of the outer membrane right after a severe trauma. Now remember that fortress we talked about? The skull is made of rigid, solid bone.
Because of that, there is absolutely zero room for the brain to expand. None. So when swelling happens, that protective fortress instantly becomes a deadly trap. The pressure literally has nowhere to go but inward, crushing the delicate tissues of the brain itself.
Chapter 4, the final blackout. When that massive internal pressure from swelling or bleeding really takes hold, a tragic, cascading failure begins. The brain describes how its fragile, incredibly rare networks are basically destroyed, just one by one, under the crushing force. The crucial communication pathways that link different parts of your mind, they sever entirely. Those massive, priceless reserves of lifelong memories, everything you have ever learned, seen, or loved, are just wiped away. Darkness slowly claims one side of the brain, and then the other.
And then we reach the total blackout. As the physical machine powers down for good, the source material actually frames this in a profoundly spiritual way. It says that at this very moment, a human must finally face the biggest truth of the universe, a truth they might never have taken seriously while they were healthy. The soul systematically turns off every single switch in the body. It departs the failing physical vessel and returns to its true world, crossing over into the eternal realm.
Finally, Chapter 5, the future human mind.
Okay, so on a lighter note, our source poses this mind-blowing hypothesis. Imagine scientists 2,000 years from now studying our brains from today. Will they look back at us and just wonder how we managed to accomplish so little with what we currently think of as our ultimate supercomputer brains? Like, will they see our absolute highest mental peaks today as, incredibly basic and rudimentary?
To really put the sheer scale of potential human evolution into perspective, compare the human brain today to where it might be in 2 millennia. Right now, we consider ourselves the apex of biological processing. But the source suggests that humans of the distant future might look at our current miraculous capabilities the exact same way we currently look at the mind of a chimpanzee. All our current intellectual powers might completely lose their significance against newly discovered, highly evolved abilities we can't even fathom yet.
So I want to leave you with this final thrilling thought to wrap up our explainer. As we continue to evolve over the next few millennia, what unimaginable powers is the human mind going to unlock next? The brain's autobiography really shows us a machine of endless mystery, immense power, and delicate vulnerability. But perhaps we have literally only just scratched the surface of what it can actually do. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the mind, and keep wondering about that incredible supercomputer right there inside your head.